This lesson contains information about commas that you should already know. Again, this should be a review. However, if there is something here that you need more information about, feel free to ask me, or you can just Google that specific comma rule. So, let's get started. We will review these 6 rules for using commas: in a list, in a geographical location, in dates, when using someone's title, to set off a quotation, and never between a subject and a verb. One of the first rules you learned for using commas was to use a comma in separate items in a list. This works when you have a list of words or a list of phrases. In the first sentence, there is a list of adjectives that describe Mrs. E. In the second sentence, we have a list of verb phrases that tell what students in AP need to be able to do. Note that in both sentences, I have used the Oxford comma. This is the comma before the word and. Every modern commentary about the Oxford or Harvard or serial comma says that it is optional. But since this class typically focuses on formal academic writing, I want you to use it. You should always use a comma between the city and state or between the city and country. For example, you write Grifton, North Carolina, or Paris, France. If you are writing the full address, which includes a zip code, you do not put a comma between the state and zip code. For example, the envelope or inside address would look like this. Technical programming or technical writing offers an exception to this rule. If you work in a technical field like engineering or computer programming, the standard is to write in all caps with no punctuation. European addresses are very different and rarely use commas. If you wanted to write to the Shakespeare Institute in England, you would address your envelope like this. Sorry, I don't know what all of that means, but I promise the letter would get there. Use commas when writing dates the traditional way. The comma goes between the day and the year. When you write in international or military format, no comma is used. March 24th, 2014 becomes 24 March 2014. Please note that in both places, the month can be abbreviated and the rule still applies. Use a comma when you are writing a person's title that appears after their name. I would say Dr. Kraft, but I would write Wilson Kraft, MD, to indicate that he is a medical doctor instead of a dentist, veterinarian, or professor. Use a comma to set off a quotation. Mark said, "Let's go to the ball game." Or you can turn the sentence around. Either way you write the sentence, there is only one period. If Mark had asked a question or made an exclamation, you would use the appropriate punctuation. For research, this rule works a little differently. If you are crediting the author in the text of your paper, then use the comma. Treat it like a normal quotation. Look at this example. According to Reuters, Russian forces armed with stun grenades and automatic weapons have seized ships and military bases in Crimea. The quotation marks show that I have copied this information directly from the article published by the Reuters news agency. If the phrase "according to Reuters" occurred at the end of the sentence, the commas would go inside the quotation marks and the period would be at the end of the sentence, just like a regular quotation. Now, if you are incorporating part of the source into your own sentence structure, you wouldn't use a comma. Here, I have only copied a phrase from the article and summarized the rest. My purpose is to focus the reader's attention on the wording of bloodless annexation of the region. This is the more mature method of incorporating sources. While it isn't required, this method should be your goal. This method shows a better understanding of your research, and it makes you seem more confident in your own opinion. The last rule is the standard English teacher rule of never use a comma between a subject and a verb. Obviously, you wouldn't use a comma in this simple sentence. But when the subject is more complex, you may decide you want the reader to pause. Don't put a comma there. Believing completely and positively in oneself is essential for success. Yes, there is a pause, but no, you don't put a comma. So, is it okay to break these rules? Nope, not these. Unless I have specifically stated an exception in the rules, you should follow them in your formal academic writing. These are the foundational elements of writing that create clarity for your readers. All readers of the English language expect certain cues to be in place in order to help them understand exactly what you are trying to say. Try following these steps for editing using these 6 rules. Number 1, look for your lists. Do you have a comma between each item in the list? Did you use the Oxford comma? Number 2, was it necessary to refer to a place by city and state or by city and country? If so, did you put a comma? Number 3, when you wrote the month, day, and year, did you put a comma between the day and year? Also, make sure you wrote all dates the same way. Don't use traditional formatting in one place and military formatting in another. If you needed to use someone's title, did you do so correctly? Number 5, look at all of your quotation marks. Is a comma required to set off those quotations? And number 6, did you use the I want a pause rule for comma placement? If so, it could be wrong. Make sure that comma doesn't separate a subject and a verb. I hope these rules will help you improve your convention score.